Okay, let's get it. Black girl magic dripping. Yeah, she's on a mission. Keeping our culture lifted. Now you can watch and listen. Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Oh, what show is that? It's the Tammi Mac Show on Fox Soul. Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Yeah. Who that? Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Hey, so you know this Tammi Mac. Hey.
Welcome to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Good evening, everyone. I am Tammi Mac. According to the National Cancer Institute, 39.5% of men and women will be diagnosed with cancer at some point during their lifetime. Those are large numbers. But with early detection, a healthy lifestyle, and good medical care, survival is a strong possibility. June 6th was National Cancer Survivors Day, and to honor that day, tonight, we are going to talk to cancer survivors. For some reason, we'll talk about that with our panel today, but for some reason, cancer survivors don't sit well in my soul. So I'm going to see how they feel about that. I know that's what people say, but there's something about it. Anyway, the business of being Black tonight is surviving cancer. Please welcome actor and breast cancer survivor, my friend, Nakia Gamby-Turner. Hey, Nakia.
Hey, Tammy.
Entrepreneur,
so good
speaker.
to see you.
Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you so much, Nakia. Thank you. Entrepreneur, speaker, and prostate cancer survivor, Robert Ginyard. Am I saying your last name right, Robert?
Yes, you are, Tammy, and thank you so much for having me.
Senior consultant with United Healthcare and testicular cancer survivor, Timothy Nelson. Hi, Timothy. Timothy, you there? There we go. And writer and breast cancer survivor, Marie A. Sutton. Hello, Marie.
Hey, Tammy. Good to be here.
Thank you for being here tonight. The first question that is a tradition of the Tammi Mac Late Show is why? Why should Black people care? Of course, this show is about the business of being Black. So I know sometimes people are like, well, everybody should care. And of course, everyone should care. But things tend to affect Black people a little differently and hit a little harder than most. And that is why we at the Tammi Mac Late Show always start by asking, why should Black people care? So tonight, the question is, why should Black people care about cancer survivors? We'll give that to you, Robert. Let's go.
Well, I think, I'll just share my testimony in that I was diagnosed with prostate cancer at the age of 48. And it was detected through early detection because my dad had prostate cancer. And so to answer the question about the why, it's really about your reason for living. And that's why I place health as a top priority, because once you know your why and who you're living for and what you're living for, it makes a difference in how you treat your mind, body, and spirit. So when all of those things are working in conjunction together, it gives you a broader and better life experience. And so that's what my message I try to preach to folks is that realize and recognize all that life has to offer. And you do that by making sure the mind, body, and spirit is in alignment. And that's why health is a top priority with me.
Tim, why should Black people care about cancer survivors?
Well, for me, it started when I was probably 19. I didn't know going with my grandmother to all of her chemo was preparing me for my own journey. So I think watching her go through it and the strength, she had it 3 times. And each time she was like Lazarus, she would get up and go shopping when she felt better. So I think it teaches us how to love more, how to be accepting, how to get over things quicker. Not to be so angry all the time. So that's where I come from.
I got to come back to that because chills just went all through my spine when you said it teaches us how to love. By that, you mean cancer survivors and those who are not affected by cancer.
That is true. That is true.
How to love.
Is true. Yep. My family, what we would do, we would go eat brunch because she didn't want us to sit with her, but she wanted us to go with her. And that time of us being all together, just eating brunch, waiting for her to get done, it drew us closer together as a family. So what she was going through, I think it caused our family to have some hard times, but at the same time, it caused us to really love each other even more.
Yeah. You mentioned Lazarus. I was just listening to, one of my favorite pastors is Steve Furtick. and which I think he's in South Carolina. And okay. Steve Furtick was preaching about Lazarus this morning on my morning walk. So, look at here.
I'm a PK son. My daddy a pastor. So, yeah.
Nakia, why should Black folk care about cancer survivors? Why?
I think there's two different things here. Why Black people should care about cancer survivors, and then why people should care about surviving cancer.
Ooh.
Um, I think why people should care about cancer survivors is because it's really tough being a survivor. Um, there's not a book or a plan that comes with surviving something like this. And oftentimes we are left at, kind of like, oh, so you find out you have cancer. And then you go through all the emotions and everybody's with you and you have all the chemo and you have all the whatever you need to have. And then as you start getting better and people discover, okay, you're fine, but you're really not. And so I think Black people, because we disproportionately die of most cancers anyway, especially breast cancer for Black women, prostate cancer for Black men, for minorities, period. We are still disproportionately dying of these things because we don't get medical help. So when people are telling you their story of how someone passed away, and you're standing there like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, but here I still am, it's a little weird. So why people should care about cancer survivors is that we may not always look like what we've been through, but just know that there may be some sensitivity there for us as well.
It's interesting you say you may not look like what you've been through. I usually dive into the chat room the second portion of the show, but tonight they're kind of lit already. And our soulmate said, glad to see all the panelists look well.
Yes.
Man.
See, that's the other part of it. Like, you may not look like what you've been through, but it's still inside you. There's so much healing that has to happen for everyone, including your family. Do you know what I mean? So this is why Black people should care. Also, you should care about going and knowing your body, knowing what's going on with this, so that you don't have to be one of those other stories.
Right.
But I would say, like, just check on your friends who have maybe been longtime survivors or something, just to make sure that we're good. Because it's not always, happy just because, yes, we are alive, but we're still mentally dealing with a lot of stuff, which is why Black people. And I also think everybody's so busy like sugarcoating what survival means sometimes, that we need to get into the real conversation of how that feels for people who do survive and have survivors.
And you know what? We are going to get into that tonight, what it means to survive, because you're right. When you hear survive, and that's why I said at the beginning of the show, I kind of have a problem with cancer survivor. I don't know how you all feel about it, but because when you think survivor, you think that someone has overcome a situation and they've left it behind and they've moved on and it no longer affects them. That's what automatically comes into your mind when you think survivor. You think, oh, they're good, they survived.
Right.
Right.
I'm a cancer warrior. That's what I try and say now, because
every
4 months, I got to go every 4 months and get a check. And I relive it every 4 months saying, okay, what's going to happen now? So, but, I come through it, but like the kid was saying, you relive it. You're still dealing with it. And then Tammi, you said it too, like every day it comes up in you, because I work in healthcare. So I'm going to always deal with something like this.
Cancer warrior. I like that.
We're all warriors here, because no good warrior comes out unscathed, right? Like you have trials in your life that happen, and some people's it's cancer and some people's it's something else. You know what I mean? But we all have our things.
Marie, why should Black people care about cancer survivors?
Black people should care about cancer survivors because you may be a survivor. The numbers for us are rising. And unfortunately, as African Americans, we're usually diagnosed at a later stage. I was diagnosed at stage 3. Had no idea that cancer was growing and spreading inside my body. And I remember when I met with my care team, they said, you're at least stage 3. We need to test and make sure it's not in your brain, it's not inside other parts of your body. And you should care, because unfortunately it could be you. And as African Americans, we really need to really take hold of our health, and encourage our family members, our loved ones to take hold of their health, because unfortunately, it could be us one day.
Yeah. I want to talk specifically about you each have different types of cancer, and we're going to get into that, but there's so much to uncover and to unwrap here, because what I really want to know and what I want people to know by the end of this show is what it means to survive, what it means to be a survivor of this deadly disease, because that's exactly what it is. And I can't imagine, and I'm sure most people, even you all, at some point in your lives, couldn't imagine thinking about the day that you were going to die.
Right.
I can't imagine what that could possibly feel like, what mentally that could possibly do to a person, and how it affects everyone around you. So we're going to get into all of that and a little bit more when we return on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is surviving cancer. Let's go to the chat room to our soulmates. Kim Possible says, I agree, everyone looks great today. And then Incog says, Black people should care because we often are underinsured and overworked. Great point, Incog, which has often kept many of us out of the doctor's office. You don't even make that correlation. Yeah, sometimes it's not even about the insurance. It's about the time you have to go to the doctor.
Right.
The sooner we get to the doctor, the better the survival rate, which is all of our panelists have said today. Cancer ravages the body and people become gaunt quickly. That's why I said, I thank God they all recovered and look well again. Bruce Taylor says the healing is more internal than ever when it comes to surviving cancer. Marie says, Timothy Nelson, I'm proud of you, baby brother.
That's my brother. What's up, man? Love you, man.
Marcus Jones says strength, only strength. Yes, you all have strength. Let's see. Tamra Raspberry Harris says, I'm here for you, sis. Nakia, she says, I'm here for you. She said NGT. I was like, is she talking about the NFTs, that new thing that they're doing?
That's my initial.
That's Nakia. Jackie says, I see you, T. Nelson. Thank you for participating on this very informative panel. JJ. Oh, JJ, that's Jackie J. That's Jackie J.
You're welcome. Yes, that's a church mother.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, you need them church mothers with them praying hands to get through some things, don't you? So I want to talk about, I'm just trying to figure which way to go first. So I'm going to go here first. Timothy, I want to talk to you about the day you discovered you had cancer. Take us to why you went to the doctor that day. Was it a routine checkup? Take us through that whole process.
Okay, so I told you I was in Belize now, which is my second international trip. My first one was in a DR in 2018. And when I first got on the plane, I felt awkward and my leg was swelling a little bit. And I was like, what's going on here? So by the time I landed, my entire left foot and ankle was just swollen. So I get to the resort, or should I say we had rented a house. I get there and I'm limping and I'm dragging it. I got 10 days here. This is my first day. And as we're going, my leg started to swell. And to be honest, as a man, I don't like the doctor. I knew before I left on this trip that the left side of my groin area looked different. But as to me, I'm gonna put some hot water on it and see if this is like something's gonna go away. Right. You know what I mean? So I'm in the DR for 10 days and I got really sick there. Like I couldn't really do all the activities, but I pushed my way through. I get back to Atlanta. I was living in Atlanta then and I left all my friends in California. I just wanted to do something different. I told my job, let me try something in Georgia. So I get real sick 3 days in a row. I go get a haircut. I go to the bar after I get a haircut like I normally do. I'm sitting there, I'm sweating, and I catch an Uber home, and I normally walk. So for a whole about 5 days, I wouldn't do nothing but lay in the bed. I was so sick, and finally I went to Emory. And
when you say you were sick, was it still the swollen leg, the groin? What describes sick?
The swelling. I couldn't keep food down. I couldn't drink water. I just laid in the bed and I was just out of it. And mind you, my family lives in Texas. I have a first cousin in Georgia, but my immediate family had moved from California to Texas. All my closest friends live in California. So it was like not that normal phone call to make to people, but Erica Nelson, Clayton Vaughn, and Jamie Giddens. I'm naming these names because, and Katrina Hill, without them, I don't know where I would have been. They took me and picked me up and made me go to the doctor. Jamie Giddens, I grew up with him. And he came I said, bring me some Gatorade and some rice. And he gets there and he's sitting there and he goes, you sure? You don't need to go to the doctor? And I go, can you just please, because I'm stubborn. I'm like I said, can you just please make my rice?
Most black men, yeah, you're like most black men.
Yeah, I'm not going to the doctor. So when he leaves, he said his conscience didn't let him feel right without reaching out to my first cousin, who then reached out to I'm about to start crying, who didn't reach out to the rest of my family. So I finally go to Emory, fast forwarding. I get to Emory, my mom flew into town and my first cousin, and they were like, the lady comes in and casually says, we've looked at everything and I think you have cancer. And then she walks back out. And I go, what? So that was
so who was the lady? Was she a nurse, a doctor?
She was my doctor. But
an intern? Who was she?
She was my doctor, but her delivery wasn't great the first time around. Because I think for her, she had gotten to the point to where she was frustrated because she's like, what's wrong with this young man? So when she comes in and she says it, my mom and my cousin, they catch an Uber there, and I do a biopsy, I think, all on the same day, on my leg. And my mom talked me into it because for the first hour, I said, well, just let me die. I'm gonna die. I had convinced myself, okay, this is your time. So I do the biopsy, and it's lymph. I had lymph. It was my lymph nodes were swollen in my testicle area. So that's where they were seeing the issue at. And they did the biopsy on my leg. And it came back, he does have cancer. And then they also wanted to do a biopsy on my neck because they felt like I had lymphedema in my neck. Because I smoked from 12 to 30. So I knew anything was possible because of my choices. So therefore, I was like coming to grips with that. But the day I found out I was in Emory Hospital in Atlanta, but they saved my life through God, I will say.
So did you find out that day you were taken to the hospital, right?
Yes, I found out the second time. They sent me home the first time.
Ah,
okay. First time I went, I get to I sat in the emergency room for like 4 hours, and they, gave me water and IV, and and said, you're dehydrated, So they treated me for about an hour or two after that, and when they released me, I said, I don't think I should go home, but I ended up calling an Uber, and so I go home, and 2 days later, I was back in the hospital. And that's when I found out that I had, I should have never left the first time. Let's just say that. I should have never left.
Right.
Yeah, but God is good that they found it early.
Why did you think you left the first time? Was it just because, well, yeah, I'm rehydrated now, I should be good?
To me, I wanted it to be reality that I was good. So because they're telling me we're going to release you, I'm saying, oh, but I knew I wasn't on the inside. We know our bodies. We do. Yeah. I could have said to them, hey, I don't feel right. I don't think I should go. But to me, it was like, if you get home, you're going to feel better. That's it. That's the mindset. The first thing the doctor said to me in the hospital, they had a whiteboard and they were like, what is your goal? And I said, go home. And she said, Tim, we can't write that yet. I know you want to go home, but there's some other things you got to do first to get there. So, the mindset.
What cancer did they diagnose you with?
I had lymphedema. I was diagnosed with lymphoma. I always say it wrong. Lymphedema is what I have left over from the cancer. So it swells in my groin area because they said it stretched out from when I was dealing with it. So
was it non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Yes.
Was it non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Closer to the name that I'm going to give you that they said was, I can't pronounce it, you guys will help me, Carpasi sarcoma. That was what the actual name that they said I was dealing with.
Marie, I want to move to you. Can you take us through the day you found out?
It was Friday, January 19th, 2018. I'll never forget. I was in a meeting interviewing a candidate for a position I had open in my department. And I could tell very quickly she was not the one. So I was looking down at my phone, which is pretty rude, but I was actually kind of checked out. I knew that by that Friday, I was supposed to hear back from a biopsy I had a couple of days prior. So I looked down at my phone and I saw an 801 number, which is Kirkland Clinic at the hospital here in Birmingham. And I excused myself out of the meeting and I checked my voicemail. And the doctor who did the biopsy, she started the message with a sigh. She was like, Mrs. Sutton, when you get a chance, can you give me a call? And so when I heard that sigh, something just, dropped inside of my heart, And so I stood out on the patio at our office and I called her back. And she said, are you where you can talk? I was like, yeah, I'm on the phone with you. I'm calling you. She was like, are you sure? Are you where you can talk? And of course, this is just building the nerves inside of me. I said, I can talk. She said, we checked all 3 places inside of your breast. And unfortunately, all 3 of them came back cancer. And when she said that word, literally my ears were hot. And I just felt like I was coming outside of my body because it was not something that I expected to hear. And I remember after she told me I had cancer, I immediately called my husband and I was crying. I was like, the doctor said that I have cancer. And he came to pick me up from work. I mean, I had driven to work. I left my purse, I left my car, my keys, everything. And I just stood in front of the building and waited for him to pick me up because I just didn't know what to do. And the first thing
I'm sorry, go ahead, Marie.
No, and I was just going to say the first thing I thought about were my kids. How in the world am I going to tell my children that I have cancer? And what does this mean? Does this mean that this is a death sentence? I had so many questions.
What made you get the biopsy?
Well, I did not have a lump like some people typically do. I just noticed, just like Tim said, your body. I looked at my right breast and it looked different. It was kind of deflated instead of, how it usually looked. And so it was time for my annual mammogram. And I told my doctor, I said, something seems off. And so they did a mammogram, they did an ultrasound, and they didn't find anything. And literally I waited another year to go back to my annual. Wow. And that was in 2017. And so in 2017 leading up to 2018, I said, something is really going on. It's still happening. And now it's a little bit more deflated. And so the doctor said, well, we don't really see anything, but since you're concerned and you've been kind of advocating for yourself, let's do a MRI. And they did the MRI, which is a deep dive, and they saw tumors on the chest wall. And so that's when they discovered that I had breast cancer after doing the biopsy. And like I said earlier, it was stage 3. It had spread to my lymph nodes and everything.
Wow. I'm hearing a lot of lymph node talk tonight. So can you explain what that is? What is a lymph node? Where is it? Where can we find? I know we have lymph nodes here, right?
Here. Yeah, you have lymph nodes under your arms, up in your neck, in between your thighs, like under here. Yeah. When you have breast cancer, they usually take a couple of lymph nodes. When you have prostate cancer, they take a couple of lymph nodes to make sure, from where the cancer may have started, so that they can see if it's spread throughout your body or metastasized, as they call it. Same thing with, again, your body, and same. I think everybody probably has
the cancer attacks your lymph nodes.
It can go spread to your lymph nodes, and that's where it usually spreads when they mean metastasize, especially in the beginning, and then it can spread throughout your entire body, but it starts in your lymph nodes.
We're going to take a quick break, but before we do, let's go to the chat room. Marcus Jones says, it seems that sometimes Black people need to understand our family history more. It could help to understand what illness runs in our family. Kim says, isn't there a link to living in poorer areas due to city planning? Black folks usually have access to the worst water, air, which can lead to increase in cancer, right? Wow. They sent him home the first time. That is insane, she said.
Yeah.
My other soulmate says, oh, so technically Marie could have been stage 1 or 2 when she originally went in a year before. Is that
That's
true?
the other.
Dafina Ward, our soulmate, says, so proud to know and love Marie. So many women have been more diligent about their mammograms because of her sharing her story. Well, we've got more stories to share when we return on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Tonight, the business of being Black is cancer survivors, are cancer survivors. I want to move to Robert so that you can tell us the day that you found out you had cancer.
Well, unfortunately, I found out my diagnosis on a Monday morning. And this is when I knew the conversation was not good. When the doctor called and told me, I hate to give you this news on the Monday morning, I just knew right at that point it was downhill. And I remember being in the office and finding a stairwell. And I went in the stairwell and just cried. And I thought, who's going to handle my body? I mean, it was just death to me. You hear cancer and you just think death right away. I had 2 little girls that were 2 and 1 at the time. And so to me, it was, I just was in this fog, in this space that I knew I was going to die.
What made you go to the doctor?
Well, now I typically go to the doctor every year to get an annual checkup. And over the course of a couple of years, Tammi, what they call the PSA was rising, and that measures the cancer cells that may be in your prostate. And so because my doctor, we really have a good relationship, he kept monitoring that over a couple of years. And then it got to a point where he said, hey, look, you know what? I'm not liking what I'm seeing here, and I think we ought to have you get a biopsy done. And sure enough, the biopsy came back and it was cancerous. But I'll tell you, Tammi, the other thing about that day of finding out, I really had a faith failure because I thought I had lived with the Lord. And, I did everything, my tithing and working in the church and all of this stuff. And I said, why me? And so it was not a good time in terms of my faith because I was ticked off, quite frankly. I said, why me? Why did I deserve this? And quite frankly, part of my mind said, that's for other people. I'm one of yours. Take care of me. What happened here? And so it took me a little bit to get that back on track. But then, and even through that, and we'll probably talk about this later on, I found my purpose through this pain. And so I went through this so others can get through it.
Yes.
And so now, I look back at it now and I say, yeah, okay, I get it now, Lord. Now, maybe if you would have broken my finger or something or leg, maybe I would have gotten the point, but, I didn't. And it took cancer to do it. And I'll share this last thing. One of the other things I thought that contributed to my cancer, and of course, there are other determinants in terms of social determinants of health, but just the level of stress in our lives and not going from some dreams that I had. And Langston Hughes says it best in his poem, The Dream Deferred. When you suppress a lot of your dreams and your goals in life, stress has a way of finding some place in your body to plant itself. And the next thing you know, cancer pops up. You have all of these other chronic illnesses. So I'm a firm believer that mindset and goals and dreams and less stress, all of that has an impact on your health.
That is, I've never heard anybody said that your dreams are tied to your health. Ooh, that's powerful, brother.
I'm gonna add to that because my oncologist, when I first went in, he said, you don't look like the man I expected to see. Reading your chart, I thought you were gonna be broke down. And I go, well, thank you. And he goes, let me ask you a question. What is going on in your life? Because you don't match what I'm looking at. And that made me look in. I needed to deal with things in my life that I may have not accepted, that unforgiveness, all those different things will eat away at you over time. And I do believe it contributes to the cancer, like Robert was saying. The things in our mentally will become physical the more we let it just go on and on and on without dealing with it. So I agree with you.
I know for a fact that you have been living out your dreams for quite some time. So in a big way, mind you. But
by the grace of God, yes, by the grace of God.
But I do know that you struggled. It was very difficult for you when you
Yes.
were diagnosed with cancer. And so it wasn't all peaches and cream just because you had decided, to live your dreams.
Right. And actually, it was cancer that made me decide to live my dreams.
Mm.
I was diagnosed, and okay, so really, I'll try to make it quick because it's. Um, so I was diagnosed in 2004 at 30 years old. I didn't expect it. I didn't know where it came from. I literally was watching a movie and I saw a guy who had prostate cancer, and I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, so I started doing breast checks
I
and
am
found
too.
out.
I'm such a
Yeah, I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, so I started doing breast checks. Uh, Found the lump myself. Weirdly, called my mother, who was in Ohio, and was like, "I think there's something wrong." This was in July, so this is right after my 30th birthday. Uh, Around late, I mean, I'm sorry, in August. This was in August. So, and then I called a couple of other people for whatever reason, and was like, there's something going on. And my friend was like, "You have to go to the doctor." I waited until October, went to the doctor, told my mom to come with me because I had a feeling.
Mm.
And she came with me. We both went to my gynecologist, Dr. Cheryl Ross, the best gynecologist in history. If you need a gynecologist, go to her.
What in what city? Nakia? Oh, I think we lost her. I think we lost. Yeah, I think we lost her there. But she'll pick back up. I'm going to go to our soulmates real quick. Peter Singleton, our soulmate, says, "Tim, you are a great man. Thankful for being an open book motivation to Black men like myself to take our health
Hello.
seriously and get checked on a regular basis." Nakia, you got cut off there, but we're still
Sorry.
ready. We're waiting for
So
you. Girl.
sorry. I think I ended on I went to the doctor with my mother.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so I went to the doctor with my mother. Um, Immediately had a biopsy. When I felt them stick the needle into my breast, I was like, I have cancer. So I went through it backwards. I had the biopsy. I had the when they stick your boob on the thing. Forgive
Mammogram.
me. Mammogram. I had the mammogram. So I did everything in reverse. Then had the MRI because women, Black, especially minority women, have really dense breasts. So mammograms don't work for us like they used to. And it's important for you to always ask for MRI, especially if it runs in your family. And if it's on your mother's side of the family, it runs in your family. So you should always get yourself checked, even starting as early as 30, just so every woman should know this. If it's on your mother's side or your mom's mom or your mom's mom's mom, go get checked. And then if they say you're too young, lie and say it runs in your mother's family. It runs in your family. Whatever you have to do in order to make sure that you know your status, please do. So
I want to mention. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So when I got the call because everything happened in succession, because like I said, my gynecologist is on top of it. So it was like the next day, the next day, the next day. She calls me, and usually whenever I go to the gynecologist, she says, "Oh, you're fine." This time she goes, "Hey, Nakia," and I started crying because I was like, she's gonna tell me what I know already. So I happened to be, because I had all this stuff done to me, I happened to be staying with my mother at the time. And I couldn't even hold the phone anymore. I just screamed, "Ah!" Like really cute. She just came running and I lost it. So gratefully though, I had a friend talk to me and said, "Kia, it is just a practice. They're just practicing and you need to go and get a second opinion." After I had a white female doctor tell me that she did not want to do a mastectomy. I mean, she didn't want to do a lumpectomy because I would look deformed and had an attitude and was talking to me like a Black girl, like I didn't know what I was talking about. Now, this made me dig even deeper to find out what was going on with myself and what I needed, because I wasn't going to let her be right. Also, a white doctor came in and said, "This happens to people like you all the time, and you should go to Save-Ons or Ralph's and get some good insurance, and we'll take your breast." And then, so this is why Black people don't go to the doctor, because because we have stuff like this happen.
People don't understand. People don't understand. Look, we are just now it's just now happening where we have a surge of Black doctors, you know. This wasn't, I mean, although we've had Black doctors, we have a significant amount in 2021, but that has not always been the case. And Black doctors, I mean, and white doctors, and the relationship between white doctors and Black people has never been okay.
Right.
I tell this story on the show all the time. I got kicked out of the hospital, literally with my panties in my hand. They kicked me out of the hospital. And I'm standing outside the hospital with my panties in my hand, wondering who's going to take me home because I'm in a daze. I don't even know how to drive.
It's the disconnect. It's the disconnect between us going to the doctor and having, you know, before there used to be family doctors, you know, at least if you could afford it, your whole family went to the same doctor. And then as they got older, someone else would say, hey, but this generation and how things have gone and everything's so money involved, and people, surgeons want a surgery and everybody just wants to have, carte blanche to everything, that it's hard to find bedside manner.
So let's talk about that bedside manner, because this plays a huge part when it comes to being diagnosed with a deadly disease. You each have shared with us tonight the way that the news was delivered to you. And it didn't seem like it was the best decision that a doctor could make when telling one that they have cancer. But I'm interested in knowing what would have made you feel better at that time. How could a doctor have approached you in a way that would have been a better way to say you have cancer?
The truth is, there would never be a good way to tell somebody that they have cancer. Yeah. There's never a good way. You do have to kind of rip the Band-Aid. And it's not really the doctor's fault for telling us what we need to know. It's just the aftercare, the way that you provide care for, people and others. You know what I'm saying? Now, I happened to have another doctor. So same day I come home crying because this woman, these two doctors made me feel like, some little new from over there. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I was like, what year is this? It's 2004. Are we still here? Yeah. But then it just so happened, blessedly, that my mom went to the grocery store, because again, I'm at her house, went to the grocery store, ran into a Black doctor that I went to church with, and her daughter happened to be a breast surgeon. And that's how I ended up getting the care that I needed. However, I want to
look at God.
Right. But I also don't want to say that, white doctors are terrible. It's just that you have to be diligent in finding your doctor. Right. And you have to try to stay with them. And I know there's a lot of people who don't have a lot of insurance, but USC County Hospital, or there's a county hospital in your state that probably is the best at doing what they do. And you need to go there and you need to go get your treatments.
Marie,
because they will help.
I want to ask you, Marie, how do you tell, you talked about your kids, and how do you tell your kids about cancer? When do you tell your kids about cancer, and how do your kids play a role in your survival?
Oh, good question. I decided not to tell them right away because I just didn't know how to. I remember I had to get a port. When you go through chemotherapy, they place a port inside your body so that, when you do chemo, I hid the fact that I got a port, and my kids were very huggy. And I remember after coming from the surgery, my son reached to hug me. I was like, mommy's not feeling the best. But before I told them, I called their school and let their teachers know, look, we're going for a long weekend and I'm going to tell my kids that I have cancer. So I'm going to need your support. And so we were driving in a car headed to Mississippi because it was a long weekend and my husband's from Mississippi. And I was in the car and I told my kids, I said, Mommy went to the doctor and I have some news to tell you. And my oldest daughter, she was like, what, are you pregnant? Because, she's a snarky preteen at the time. I was like, no. I said, keep in mind, we believe that God is a healer and that mommy is strong. I said, the doctor said that mommy has cancer. And I remember that my daughter, she started hyperventilating. My son, he just wept, and we literally had to pull over. We pulled over to a gas station, and I know people were watching because we got out of the car, and I just cradled my children and just, tried to, let them know that everything, I couldn't make any promises because I didn't know.
Right.
But my daughter, I remember that she would tell me, I love you. I love you. I love you. Every single time there was a bit of silence, she would fill it with, I love you. And she would stare at me because she did not want me to have a moment of not knowing that she loved me.
Wow.
And so it really impacted them. And the school really rallied around them. And the counselor will pull them out and let them write in journals. It was a lot. It was a lot.
We're going to take a quick break and come right back on the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is cancer survivors. Please welcome actor and breast cancer survivor Nakia Gamby-Turner, entrepreneur, speaker, and prostate cancer survivor Robert Ginyard. Also, senior consultant with United Healthcare and testicular cancer survivor Timothy Nelson, and writer and breast cancer survivor Marie A. Sutton. Robert,
Yes.
You spoke about cancer equaling death when you found out. And so my question is, with all of the cancer survivors that we've seen in the past 10 years or so, with all of the medication and the treatments and the survival rating going up, why do people still think it's a death sentence?
Because we have so much history of death associated with cancer. And that is going to take a lot of time to get out of people's mind because, again, you think of cancer and you think of death right away. And so we need more survivor stories, and particularly we need more African Americans to share their story. I'll share this particularly with prostate cancer, and Tim may be able to identify this with testicular cancer. Because you're dealing with a cancer that's below the waistline for most men, they don't want to talk about anything related to anything down there. And so therefore, a lot of men don't share their stories about prostate cancer. I had a call last week from a friend who was diagnosed and treated for prostate cancer, but he said once he started asking his family about prostate cancer, they all raised their hands. Oh yeah, I had it. Oh, and your uncle had it. And all of these people are sharing that they had cancer once he said, hey, I have it. And so, we need to tell more of that story so that, when people go to get their ancestry test done, we need to really pay attention to our health ancestry. What's in our bloodlines that we need to watch out for so that as our kids are growing up, maybe we steer them to certain diets or whatever, but we need to become more holistically thinking about how do we manage our health and our health outcomes. And again, it really gets back to sharing that story, and particularly the survivorship of prostate cancer. And I'll quickly say this. We talked about some of the Black doctors that we're starting to see today. I think we need to see more of that, and I'm glad that we are seeing an increase. We also need to have more Blacks participate in clinical trials. Now, clinical trials is kind of like, a hands-off and taboo because they think about Tuskegee and Henrietta Lacks and those types of situations. Right. But we need more Blacks to participate in trials that are run by a lot of smart African-American people who are conducting these trials, because that way you have some kind of history to go on to say, what was the participation rate of that particular study and how many African-Americans? Oh, okay, it's enough of them that I can think I'll base my treatment based on how that clinical trial was used against people who look like me. And so we need more African Americans to participate in that, because quite frankly, my treatment was based on the clinical trials that were done on people that didn't look like me.
Right. And I participated in a clinical trial, and when the doctor approached me, he said, "We want you to try this this drug." I said, "No." I was adamant. I said, "No." I said, "I'm not Henrietta Lacks. I refuse. I don't trust you." And because he was a person of color, he sat me down and he said, listen, I really think you need to try this drug. And it was an immunotherapy drug. And it contributed to the reason I had a complete response to my treatment.
Right.
And the drug that I participated with was for triple negative, which I did not have triple negative, but a lot of Black women have triple negative. And because I participated in a study, a lot of African-American women will benefit from this drug. So I'm a proponent definitely for drugs.
When you say triple negative, what do you mean? Just so we understand.
Go ahead, Nakia.
Triple negative is basically like the worst breast cancer you could possibly have. It usually imminently means it's very hard to treat. It's one of the worst female breast cancers there is. And it usually gets to the point where it has metastasized, which is why it's called triple negative. But it flows so quickly through the body, it's like this. And I know a couple of people who have passed away from that. And it's devastating. It's devastating to the family. But, it's also very, it's such a weird thing to have to deal with your mortality, period.
Yeah.
And accepting the fact that you might die, and then you don't. When you finally like kind of accept it, maybe, and then
I don't even know. Like every day, I would think.
Yeah,
like,
every day.
You think every day is today? Will be the day? Will this be the day I die?
You pretty much. I feel like I pretty much up until this point, when at 16 years later, I'm a 16-year cancer survivor, and 16 years later, I'm just now not looking around the corner to see what's coming.
What about you?
I feel like I'm.
Honestly, I live every day like it's my last, because I sometimes be like, what is tomorrow gonna bring?
All right.
Yeah.
Which is why you're in belief right now. Which is why you're in belief right now.
Right.
They're telling me I got to take a break. So we're going to take a break and come right back on the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul. We are out of time, everybody, but we definitely have to find out what's going on in our panelists' life. Robert, what can you tell us about your podcast, Intentionally Overheard with Robert Ginyard? Where can we watch it?
You can find it on almost any of the platforms out there. And the podcast was created as a way of me helping other people find out what their dreams and what their purpose is in life. And I go by the motto, Dibby Dibby, dream it, believe it, do it, be it. And that's my way of keeping life on track, going for my dreams, and hopefully I can encourage others to follow theirs as well.
Dibby Dibby, Timothy.
Dibby Dibby.
You work with United Healthcare.
Yes, and I'm just telling people, always notice United Healthcare, they have a cancer resource program. And I found out as an employee, they do call you and they do keep up with you. So I just want to put up that for people. Do your research for what you got through your health insurance.
And Marie, your writings, where can we find them?
You can go to marieasutton.com. Always writing about the African-American experience. We'll have a book out soon, knock on wood, on the Magic City Classic, and also on the story of my grandmother's life, who's Black girl.
Yeah, the Magic City Classic, huh? A whole book on the Magic City Classic?
I went to Jackson State. It could be a book.
Let me tell you, you're gonna be a bestseller. What project should we look for you on television?
Well, my film is on 12-Hour Shift is on Hulu right now, so you can catch that. And then I also am going to be on the final season of Insecure. Ooh. And an episode of Good Girls. And then you can also catch me on Station 19, 911. God is so
Girl,
good.
we might as well look you up on IMDb.
God is so good. I've been through it, but hey, I'm right here with you.
I want to thank each of you. And I have 1 minute left. So in one word, how should you live life with or without cancer? Because a lot of times we decide after something traumatic happens to us that we're going to live life a different way. But when we should have always been living life that way. Mm-hmm. So in one word, how should we live life, Robert?
Dibby Dibby. Dream it, believe it, do it, be it. Better health outcomes.
Tim, what you got?
Best.
Living
your
my best
life.
life.
Yes. All day.
Marie?
Gratitude.
Mm.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Nakia, how should we live life with or without cancer?
Fearlessly.
Mm.
Woo! Mm. Thank
I
you.
love it.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Nakia. And thank you, Marie, for sharing your story tonight on the Tammi Mac Late Show. Until tomorrow, everybody, with much gratitude, it's a blessing to be in your box. Bye, y'all.